Juanita, Cole, I saw Cole downstairs. He's here.
Yeah,
James, you're here.
I got
Kenny,
100 today.
Aquí.
Isabel not here. Brian here. Chase, just walked there.
This is the first time I've been
Bob is here.
Other than maybe let's
I
see.
haven't seen Jacqueline, you're here.
Thank you.
Naisha, you're here. Alec, you're here. John, he was here, he's here. Liana's here. Judson, I don't see. Andrew, you're here. Sam, I don't see. Rio, you're here.
It's just a lot. It's like location constraints. Are you in Rio?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you looked at it? I just looked at it.
Like
And I was
that.
like, oh yeah, I haven't done anything. Just looked at it. And I was like, oh.
I think it's like cardboard.
No, it's
No, they think they got 5 minutes to go.
Yes. I just I know, it's really cool. Really cool. Well, I just like that, so, you know, I can go my promotion yeah, exactly. And you can just go back. This is everything from the textbook. It's just, so yeah, it's by Microsoft. It's like a sister application, I suppose, right? But yeah, and you can just have like notebooks. So I have one for MSRED, one for myself, one for my business, and for and compartmentalize. Well, see, I used to, I took them all out, but yeah, exactly. But I mean, this isn't like typed. If you can't search it. You know how like if you have like an actual document, you can control F. You can't do that with this, unfortunately. Which would be amazing if you could. Yeah. Almost. Thank you. So, how much? You chilling? 100%. Chilling. I'm ready to just absorb. Full absorption.
Taking photos and technique that you do videos. Oh, you did.
Which was not good, but I went to this, I went to like ball game last night.
Oh yeah.
Working. But, you know, I was like, I want to come out, like.
Yeah.
This is like what I did for video. I made this thing. As he was going through it, I was just making it.
Chase, are you gonna?
It's already recording.
It's already recording?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Let me just double check though, so I don't lie. But I definitely clicked it.
Does it?
Yep, it's good. How you doing, John? Chase. How are you doing? Doing great. How's your week been?
It's pretty good.
Please no buying your mouse. So ridiculous at this point.
Every week it's the same thing.
$10. It seems like a mouse right now.
I need to bring a computer.
Every quiz like that.
This one lasted me 10 years now.
We down. Do well. Study. Studied every day for a week, and then there was my average one after a meeting. So that was good.
I have this, I take at least 30 minutes after I finish it to
No, yeah.
All right, let's get started. So it's 12:29. We're going to get started. We're going to work a lot today, but if I can get phones off, please, and laptops off, I promise I'll let you start working soon. Okay, so we can just eyes for a second. All right. Today this is session number 6. So we get past today. We've only got 2 more sessions, right? So I promise if you've watched the videos, it says we're going to move quickly. We are going to move quickly. We've put a lot of work in. We've gone slow to get some base in. Hopefully, you've been able to. I hope that. I know I've definitely seen improvement. I see some phenomenal spreadsheets. I see some that still need a little bit of work, but I definitely see improvement across the board. It seems like people are learning. Would you agree with that? I mean, that's kind of a leading question. I'd probably get objected to in a court of law, but do you feel as if you've learned some things? Maybe you feel like you've learned more, but you've learned some things? Okay. Today we're gonna go over really the last bit of what we're going to cover in the textbook. That'll be quick, and then I only brought couple things in to talk about really quick. And we're gonna move right. So we've done sort of multifamily ad nauseum. That's the easiest asset class to model in Excel. We've worked through that. During the week we progressed to hospitality. We're going to wrap that up today. Next week we're going to cover office, industrial, and retail sort of all quickly together because they're all very similar. I want to start on development. We'll do some development next week and then development the last week. So pretty much done with the book. What I want to try to do is prepare as much work up front to prepare to watch the video so that you work during the class. And in that way, I'm here and I'm accessible as you're working through cases, okay? But it's important that you do some advanced work. There's no reading to do. If you don't look at the videos and come prepared, it's going to be very difficult to do the work, okay? So. Yesterday I had 3 very interesting real estate meetings. I rarely get out of the office, but I had a call with the investment committee at Fordham where I'm on the board. And one of the assets we looked at was a mitigation bank. It was sort of interesting that got involved with that. We ultimately wound up we're not going to invest in it, but sort of an interesting risk-return profile in real estate. I then went to a bank in the middle of the day to negotiate a construction loan for our condo. I'm not on the board, but they wanted me to come along, so I came along. And it was really interesting because I asked the officer where rates were, and she said, "Well, I don't know. I think we're like 4 or something. I don't know." I said, "Well, what's the rate?" She says, "Well, it's like 10-year Treasury plus 300." And I said, "Well, the 10-year Treasury is at 177, so it's got to be, 477, right?" She's like, "How do you know?" I said, "Because I look at it every day." Okay, so I mean, it does come into play, all right. And then, very interestingly, I had a meeting late in the afternoon with a developer in Miami. The first thing I walked in, I saw one of our former students there. I didn't realize she was working there. What I thought was great was she came here. She was a residential broker. Her first day was in my accounting class. She had no Excel skills. She didn't know what she was doing with math, with numbers, and she does all the modeling for this business now. And this was only 3 years ago, so come a long way, and she's doing really well. She walked in, and she's like, "I know, dollar signs on top and at the bottom." She was like, and if you see her models, they got like color-coded tops, and everything's in boxes, and there's no grid lines. So I thought, but what I thought was interesting was, at the end of the day, developers are people with ideas, and successful developers are people that surround themselves with a good team. Because if you just have the dream and the idea, but don't back it up with some financial or construction muscle, things don't work. And so we went to see this guy because I'm not sure, the stories were varied. He either has 8 or 18 projects under construction, but they're all paralyzed now. And so, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And he's paralyzed because he's run out of money. But you know, he says he's got all this equity in these deals, but the lender, he went to a hard money lender, so I asked him, who are you? I'm not going to use names because these are real people in town. So he goes, oh, you know, my exclusive broker is X. I'm like, Ezra? He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh man. You know, so the guys, they got him in handcuffs, and they're basically going to take his properties away. You know, and so like, he called up a friend of mine who lives next door to him and said, I need capital. And so the guy said, look, I'm going to round up, I got a good friend in New York who's a good source of funds for real estate. I got a friend who's a developer. We'll come meet you next week. And he's like, no, can you meet me tomorrow morning? So we wound up meeting in the afternoon. That guy's really in a desperate way. He also has, in addition to those projects, has really some very emblematic parcels in a section in Miami. It's going through gentrification, and that's really why I went, because I thought it was interesting, and I thought maybe we could get it from the guy. But I mean, he's upside down on him. So here's the question. These are the stupid questions I asked. How much does the land cost? He said, I paid $7 million for it. I said, but you're only entitled for 70 units. I go, that's $100,000 a door. And he says, yeah. I said, this is affordable housing. How do you make that work? I mean, if you're in land at $100,000, what can you build for? What are rents? Do the math. I mean, I sat there in my calculator and I said, look, you're building to a 1.2 development yield. How do you make that work? Who's going to give you money for this? No, let me show you. So the guy had like the most beautiful, they spent millions on architects. They got all these drawings for everything. They got renderings for everything. Got wonderful, you know, sort of interactive presentations. You know, beautiful offices in a very exclusive building. I mean, all the ideas in the world. But he can't put it together. Can't put it together. So, you know, I could write a book on this. So, why don't you use a traditional lender? No. He said, because, listen, let me tell you, he says to me, when you go to a bank will only give you a construction loan, and then you have to go to another bank. And he goes, I got 18 projects, I can't go to 18 banks. I said, look, I'm really sorry, I got a little bit of experience in this, okay? You can go to a bank and get multiple construction loans. No, you can't. Okay, well, when you know everything, right? So I said, don't you have like a, don't you have like a CFO? He goes, we just hired a guy part-time, but he doesn't cost me any money. So how do you do this? He says, I'm going to give him the exclusive to go get financing for all my projects, and then he's going to pay me a portion of his mortgage brokerage fees. So he's going to pay me to be my CFO. So sometimes when you're just too smart, so I said, why don't you, if you can only get one loan, why don't you just do one project? No, I got to do a lot of projects at once because that's how I can make a lot of money. Well, how's that working out for you, buddy? I mean, it's not working out, is it? So, I said, just go to one bank and get one loan. I said, plus, how much are you paying these hard money guys? Oh, it's only like 11 or 12% for my construction loans. Well, I mean, at the bank, we're talking about 4 and change. So I said, when I was at a bank this morning, you get a construction loan for, a third of that. No. Because I make it up on velocity. I could pay more, but because I turn my projects over quickly, I make more money. So, I mean, I was dizzy when I walked out. I mean, I think I'm going to write a book on this stuff, but there are a lot of morals to this story, okay? There's a lot of morals to this story, but rely on professionals. It's great to have ideas because the guy had some wonderful ideas. I started, what's the thing? So he wants to do student housing. He's going to put student housing all over Dade County, but not next to universities. He's going to put it in hip places because that's where young people want to live, right? And then he's going to work out with Metro Dade a free transit where the buses are going to take kids to whatever university they'll go to. He says to the University of Florida. Imagine that. To Gainesville, it's like you need FIU. Yeah, that's what I mean. I need FIU. So, I mean, listen, it's stuff like this, you know, developers, you gotta have local knowledge.
That's our competition right there. The guy that's willing to pay 1.2 yield.
You know, but, so it's like, but you know, he's got this whole thing, and it's like, you know, I'm gonna rent my room, and he's gonna have to do a contract, and I'll just give you an app, and with your app, you'll open the door, and to the building, and then you'll get in the elevator, it'll take you to your floor, and then I'm even gonna go down to your bedroom. You can't even get into your bedroom, because I'm gonna rent by the bed, not by the unit. I mean, he's got all these sort of like interesting ideas, but like, how do you put them to work? And how much does all that cost? And how do you manage it, right? So, great renderings. I mean, architects have had a field day with this guy, you know? And branding people and all that. But sometimes it's better to just like do one thing right, not do, you know, 100. So, I thought it was kind of sad. Out of the 18 projects that he's got held up right now with this lender is his house. So he's building a house, and so he's showing us all these pictures of all these half-built structures. And included in it is his house. And I thought that was kind of sad, you know, and he's got this other thing where he's a deacon. I don't want to say too much, as you might triangulate who this guy is, but this guy's a deacon at a church in Dade County that has a pristine 20-acre parcel of land. There's been a lot in the news, and he's like, I want to get this, and so they're going to build the church, and part of it, I want to do this residential development, I'm going to put senior housing, and I'm going to put some, you know, whatever here, I'm going to put the pastor's house here, and I'll put the assistant pastor's house there. He goes, but just because I'm a deacon doesn't mean I got an inside deal on this, you know? And I thought, this guy's like, you know, it's all over the place. So anyway, developers are dreamers. So when you look for jobs, when you look for clients, try to find people that dream, but, you know, like feet touch the ground too, okay? Or have people that surround themselves with people that touch the ground. Because for every idea guy, you got to have a straight guy, right? So, you know, in that Odd Couple, you guys never saw the Odd Couple. You're much too young.
No, I just watched it Friday night.
Like the original movie? The original. So there's a movie from like 1968 or something.
Yeah.
And then there was a TV series in the 70s. And it was two guys that got kicked out of the house by their wives, you know. One was a slob and the other one was a neat freak, right? So the only way to keep the house together is one guy would destroy it and the other guy would pick it up, okay? And that's kind of how business have to work. A guy's got to have all the crazy ideas, but then a guy's got to, like, you know, make sure that things work, okay, and make things happen. The only story I brought from today, I think it was, John, were you the one talking about credit default swaps and shorting the market and all that? So if you would have read the Wall Street Journal this week, did you?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, sorry about that, yeah.
I have one in my car.
You're killing it right now.
Do you know who Carl Icahn is?
Yes.
Does everybody know who Carl Icahn is? So he's a hedge fund guy, he was a corporate raider. I'll tell you the real...
malls.
Sorry?
He's betting against malls.
That's what that says, right? Is that what the article says? Is that what the headline? Yeah, okay, all right. So I'll tell you a real life story about Carl Icahn. Carl Icahn has a house on Indian Creek. You guys know where Indian Creek is?
Miami Beach.
You don't know where Indian Creek is?
No, I know.
Oh, it's like right by where you live. Indian Creek is between the barrier island of Miami Beach and like this, no, not South Beach, and like North Miami somewhere. So it's up about 100. Surfside. So it's like Surfside by Surfside, right? So like what's Beach Street number, is that like 103 or something?
No, 89.
89? Okay, so it's a little island. It has an exclusive country club, and it has like 20 houses around it, and it's city, and it's got its own, you know, police force and its own mayor, and like Julio Iglesias lives there. Don Shula lives there, not because Don Shula made a lot of money, but he married a widow. When he widowed, he married a widower who had a lot of money, and so people with a lot of money live there. Norman Brainman lives there. You guys know Norman Brainman used to own the Eagles, owns a bunch of car dealerships. Okay. Sorry?
There's a Haitian
Billionaire that lives there. They have Eddie Lampert lives there. Eddie Lampert's the guy that controls Sears, okay, and Kmart, and owns a big chunk of Auto Nation. Anyway, so it's like 20 billionaires, okay? So a friend of mine's a member at the club, and he's pulling in one day, and he's talking to the police chief right there. he stops at the bridge, he's talking to the police chief, you know, and this big limo walks, you know, drives in, and the window comes down, and the police, oh, Mr. Icahn, very nice to see you, I haven't seen you in a while. Oh, nice to be here. You know, go on in. The guy goes in. About 5 minutes later, the limo comes out. Window comes down. Mr. Icahn, is everything okay? Can you remind me which one my house is again? I don't remember. Okay, when you got that much money and that many houses, he didn't know which house. I'm not saying this is not a made-up story, okay? This is a real story. I don't know if he's senile or if he just has that much money. It's sick.
Or he can afford to be senile.
Well, the problem is this guy he's on CNBC at lunchtime a lot, and he's like, you know, yelling at people, but he sets markets, okay? People like this set markets. So anyway, to your point, I wanted to bring it because you brought it in. So you and I can't trade CMBSs. These are over the counter, right? You cannot trade securitized debt. Now, if you're an institutional investor, you've got access to this, okay? But if you and I can't. The only way you and I can invest in CMBSs is there's an ETF called CMBS that tracks an index of securitized debt, and there's a couple of mutual funds that you can buy that track indices as well. That's all you can do. And if you want to short them, you may be able to short the ETF. You definitely can't short the mutual funds, okay? But so if you want to do some research, the index that this guy in particular has bought some credit default swaps on is called the CMBX6. So you can look it up. Bloomberg will have an article on it. It'll explain to you what it is. So all securitized debt in this country, just so that you know, it's just a follow on from the other day. All securitized debt in this country is followed. So what happens is there's a conduit. We went through this the other day. There'll be a conduit, right? So let's call it JP Morgan. JP Morgan will go out there and set aside $400 million to say something, right? To borrow to a bunch of different people, okay? To lend to a bunch of different people who want to borrow. So what they'll do is they'll go ahead and make all these loans, right? And then they'll package these loans, right? And securitize them. Okay, so people are buying the income stream associated with those mortgages, okay? Or what they'll do is they'll create what's called an SPV, right? And then that SPV will be the one that issues the different tranches of. So there's a couple of companies out there. There's one called TREP. I don't know the name of the other one. They track the performance of all these individual loans because investors need to know who's performing, who's not performing. So it's a very expensive service. It costs like $50,000 a year, but you can find out the $1 trillion of securitized debt in this country. You can see by asset which asset securitized or which asset is encumbered by securitized debt, and you can see the terms of the loan and the interest, and you can see its performance. Okay, so this CMBX6 happens to track some of these securitized bits that were done for malls. Malls in particular, and in particular that one happens to be for a particular year. Okay, and the theory was that it was a peak year where people were paying extremely high dollars for malls like 2012 or 2011, and so people are saying, hey, that's going to blow up. Okay, so rather than shorting it, because there's really no market to short that, what you do is there's something called CDSs, credit default swaps. And a credit default swap is nothing more than an insurance policy. So somebody will issue a credit default swap for you. You pay them a premium, and they're essentially guaranteeing that you're going to collect something. So he's bought, so as something gets riskier, the cost of the premium goes up. So he's bought a bunch of credit default swaps here, betting that they're going to go up in value because, right now it's, whatever, $10,000 for $10 million of coverage or whatever, and he's hoping that that grows to $100,000, right? And then he can sell that credit default swap to somebody else, okay? So that's the way people play that, and that's how all these things happened in 2008 that had problems. Yes, Jose Pablo?
This all reminds me of The Big Short.
Well, that's exactly, I didn't watch the movie, but that's exactly, I think it was on residential mortgages, not commercial mortgages, but it had to do with people either buying or selling credit default swaps.
But
This is the small
he's
print.
making, in this particular
This is the
example,
small
he's
print.
making a margin on the premium, as opposed to like, in the movie, they wanted them to fail and then they weren't paying premium.
Yeah, look, this is an article in the Wall Street Journal, and then I went to another article, and what happens is, look, the only times I've ever been involved in articles that have been published, only about half of it is accurate. Okay? So when I read it, I'm like, wait a minute, that's neither what we said, nor is that really what's happening. So I can't really tell from the article what's happening. What they led me to believe was that he bought a bunch of these credit default swaps with the intention of selling them when they went up in value. Okay? Originally, somebody issued this and collected a premium. But then he went and paid that guy, the guy who issued it, he paid him a premium, or he paid him a price to step into his shoes, and he's hoping to sell that to somebody else.
You also said that the retail was at like max value or premium value in like one of the worst times, like 2011-12. Is that like inverse? So retail now is cheap because it's like we're high in residential, and then like why?
Well, let me put it. Let me put what you said in a different way. Retail was trading in 2011, 2012, I would tell you, as most other real estate asset classes. I think from what we went over the other day, retail is, at significantly higher cap rates now. That I can tell you. So from a price per dollar perspective, or how you value the income stream, it's definitely cheaper than it was because of people's concern with the future performance of retail. Okay, so the changes in prices come from people's perception. It's really the demand for buying those assets. So, to answer the question, are retail assets cheaper today than they were 7 or 8 years ago? The answer is yeah, absolutely. Much cheaper. And the implication behind this bet is that somebody bought one in 2011, borrowed a lot of money, probably has a big balloon payment coming up in year 10. Most securitized debt has 7 or 10-year maturities. Okay, so stuff from 2011, 2012 is maturing from now to 2021, 2022. So somebody's saying, hey, there's going to be a workout here, there's going to be a problem, there's going to be defaults here.
Why were people paying a premium at the bottom of the market?
Dude, I mean, that's, nobody forces you to do anything in this
Well,
country.
no, yeah, I just don't like...
Because somebody's got, somebody,
Is that like the only asset that was
why
in
would
that?
somebody, I mean, I don't know if you do, I have a cousin that, religiously does call options, okay? He sells call options on his stock, and he does what are called leaps. He sells, at the beginning of the year, he sells an option for an entire year. He collects a premium. And most of the time, his stock never goes up. The stuff he's holding stuff like IBM, it doesn't go up. But somebody's paying a premium, to him, and you ask the question, why? Well, I mean, there's counterparties in this country. There's people that think, why would an insurance company take your premium to assure you? There's going to be a hurricane in Florida next year. They're gambling that they can collect enough premiums from all these other people that they'll be able to offset the losses. I mean, that's really, I mean, I don't play this game, so I don't know what their, financial, the financial thinking is, but the people that were big issuers of these CDSs were companies like AIG, which were insurance companies. So for me, my thinking is this is part of their risk management. They're collecting premiums to bring in to offset against future losses. Yes, Sam?
I wasn't sure if I heard you right before, but did you say he bought religiously, like based on speculation, or what did you mean when you said religiously? Or did you say rigorously?
Same concept. Synonyms. Nothing to do with real religion.
Yeah, first of all, I had nothing to do with religion, if I said religiously.
No, but you meant to, like he was saying, just like very earnest, like.
Over and over.
Yeah.
Consistent.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say. I didn't mean to say religiously in a particular way. So anyway, so you can look it up and follow if you've got the. And listen, I think I said in one of the videos, there's companies like L&R. Well, Starwood owns L&R now. Rialto, Rialto's been spun off from Lennar now. Bayview Capital, Torchlight was here, they're gone, but one of our former students went with them to New York. So all those people play in that whole securitized debt space. I mean, it's a whole world within real estate to work in. So if you've got an interest in that, you know, Starwoods has an internship program. Go online. I have a former student that's looking into it right now. Go online and take a look. They're there on South Beach, you know, hip offices, right? You might even get one of those phones to open up the door like this other guy, okay? You know, they probably bring Uber Eats in and stuff like that. I mean, you know.
The bedroom.
Bedroom?
Yeah, right to the bedroom.
Okay. No, I mean, listen, take a look into it. It's real estate, you know? So, anyway. I want to go over textbook kind of quickly. So textbook reading this week, we're chapter 6 and supplemental 4. Supplemental 4 really was Argos. I'm going to segment that for a second. I'll leave that apart. I don't have a lot to add. We pretty much covered everything that the book went over about modeling, we've gone over in a different way, and then some. Okay? And then some. So, you know, everybody presents things in a different way. This guy summarizes modeling as a systematic analysis where you evaluate risks and opportunities, okay? And where you can do sensitivity analysis. Kind of sounds like everything that we do, right? You know, so systematic analysis, evaluating risks and rewards, right, and opportunities, right? He talks about the importance of assumptions. We've talked about that. And you do some sensitivity analysis. There's a whole section on base rental revenue, okay? And he kind of goes over the things we went over last week when we talked about leasing concessions, okay? When we talked about you know, rent abatements and TI and you know, other sorts of concessions. So you know, he goes through that. I want to repeat the importance of understanding leases. So I'm not doing it in the context of diligence now. I'm talking in the context of just understanding cash flow in any real estate transaction, okay? In multifamily, lease structures are relatively simple and straightforward. Bless you. Very simple and straightforward. People lease typically for a year, sometimes a little bit less. Some municipalities allow, you know, less frequent. You know, it could be more of a transient type community. Part of the reason that a lot of multifamily environments have to have leases in place is because of municipal ordinances that prohibit transit. You know, because then that becomes a hotel, or what are those things called now? Those Airbnb things? What do they call those things?
Vacation rentals.
Yeah, but there's another term that's used. Whatever.
Transient.
Like whatever. You know what we're talking about. So it's like hotels, okay? So and that impacts property values, and it impacts, you know, transit and parking and all kinds of things like that, okay? So, and then there's a whole issue of service that you provide. Hotels are basically one-day contracts, or, you know, two-day contracts, or a week contract, right? You don't even have leases in hospitality. When you get into retail, office, and industrial, you've got lease structures. Next week's video, I've already done next week's video. I repeat some of the concepts that we've talked about already, where we're talking about the difference between gross leases and net leases. And ultimately one would think that at a net level, the landlord is always going to attempt to collect the same thing regardless of the structure. Okay, but a gross lease, the tenant pays a lump sum, and from that the landlord pays the operating expenses. In a net lease, the tenant pays a lease to the landlord and then reimburses the landlord for the operating expenses. So the real difference is, in a gross lease, the risk of rising operating expenses rests with the owner. In the context of a triple net lease or a net lease, the tenant is the one that assumes the risk for escalating or increasing operating expenses. There's ways to mitigate that. There are variants of gross leases. You typically see them in office, but you might see some in industrial, And so you'll see things like what's called full service net of electric, where the electrical will be metered directly to the tenant. So the landlord stays out of that equation. You see that in data centers, call centers, you know, maybe medical office, you know, depending on the use, but where there's a heavy electrical use. You might see full service net of electric and janitorial, and again, the landlord is pushing down the janitorial to the tenant. In most office leases, the landlord provides janitorial services. Some people, because of privacy or because of efficiency, will hire their own janitorial. So the landlord will structure the lease in a way where it's a gross lease, but they're pushing down directly to the tenant the electric and the janitorial services. The last thing that we haven't talked about, the other way that a landlord can mitigate his risk is through what are called base year or base stop provisions, or dollar stop provisions, okay? So in these contexts, these would be concepts that are evaluated. I talk a little bit more about this in the video next week, but just so the more you hear it, the more you become familiar with it. In a base year concept or a base stop concept, in the lease, you have a gross lease, but there will be a base year or a hard dollar number over which increases, or the lapse of time, any changes are assumed by the tenant. Okay, so you may have a base stop of $3 on industrial. So if, you know, in year 3 of the lease, the operating expenses become $3.25, you're still paying your gross rental, but now you're paying another 25 cents. Okay, you're paying above that base stop. So landlord is basically stopping his risk at a certain point. Or in the context of a year, you might say, hey, our base year is 2,000, and you pay our operating expenses were 12 that year. You know, in 2001, you're going to pay the difference over what the base year was. Okay, so that way the landlord is protecting himself, saying, hey, out of the gross lease you're paying me, I'm paying operating expenses, but only up to a certain number. Okay? Now, why is all this stuff important? And I'm going to talk a little bit about Argos. I'm not going to do Argos here, but anytime you model a lease in those asset classes, you need to understand how the revenues flow. If you don't understand how the revenues flow, you can't build a model. So you need to understand what the tenant is responsible for and what the landlord is responsible for and what payments the tenant makes to the landlord so you can build a model. And you're going to see that in next week's video, okay? Because we'll touch it, we'll do it in Excel. We can't do it with the same robustness as you can in Argos, okay? So we need to understand lease structure, okay? We need to understand lease structure. We also need to then also understand all of the rights, obligations, terms, and conditions of a lease. We need to understand how long. We need to understand what kind of increases there might be. We need to understand what sort of expansion options there might be, what sort of rights a tenant may have to give back space, okay, etc. So all that impacts our models. So it really starts with the lease structure. We need to understand the lease. The author talks about vacancy and ancillary income. We've talked about ancillary income in the context of multifamily. Same similar concepts that exist in other asset classes. So for example, in office, you know, parking might be an ancillary income. You know, you might get X number of parking spaces for free. You might get rights to certain parking spaces at a certain dollar amount, okay? Fitness centers, you know, whatever. Anything else that a landlord may make available for a fee, okay? You know, this guy says very, you know, sort of simply, vacancy sort of works inversely with the market, right? So, it says inversely with market strength, okay? So, market goes up, occupancy goes up, vacancy comes down, right? Market strength goes down, vacancy comes down. I'm sorry, occupancy goes down, vacancy goes up, okay? I showed you that I not only look at you know, I look at a series of signals to help us with that, right? So we look at trends, In rents, we look at trends in absorption, right? We look at trends in vacancy, or the opposite in occupancy, right? We look at pipeline, right? So what's in the pipeline and any deliveries that we have coming online, okay? So, you know, we really want to get a true understanding of supply and demand paradigm, so bless you, so that we can properly model, okay? Operating expenses. So the book talks a little bit about the difference between variable and fixed expenses. And the simple way to look at that is there's certain expenses that you have to pay regardless of whether you have a tenant or not. You own a property. You got to pay property taxes regardless of whether you have one tenant or the place is fully leased. Utilities theoretically are variable, right? If you have one tenant, you consume X. If you have two tenants, you consume Y. If you have three tenants, you consume Z. I would argue, and the way I've done my models, and you'll see as I move forward in the program, I'm going to assume that most expenses for the most part are fixed, okay? And, you know, when you're dealing between 95 and 97% occupancy in factors like in asset classes like multifamily, expenses are all fixed. One change, 1% change or 2% changes in rental stream are not going to change your operating expenses. Okay, you still got to mow the lawn, and you're still heating common areas, things like that. The problem that you run into is when you've got significant slugs of vacancy in a particular building. So a building is 50% filled. You still got to pay the property taxes. You still have to pay the concierge. You still have to do all the landscaping. You still have to pay insurance. But now you've only got some of the tenancy to reimburse those expenses. And so that's where real estate becomes tricky and property management becomes tricky when occupancy falls below certain key levels. Okay, so you need to be very, very careful. And so you can defer maintenance. It's just about the only thing you can do, but you can only defer maintenance for so long. Okay, capital reserves. We talked about that a lot last week. I keep talking about it in the videos. Leasing commissions, tenant improvements, although it could be other concessions. Okay, and building improvements. Okay, recurring capex. All right. He talks about residual value. We spent a lot of time talking about perpetuities and capitalizing income streams to derive sales. We've deducted cost to sell, selling expenses, and brokerage commissions. So we've already talked about all of that. The author talks about the material portion of cash flow being derived from the disposition or the proceeds from the sale of an asset. And the only thing that I can tell you is you've got the tools in your toolkit now to figure out what percentage comes from cash flow and what percentage comes from sale. And the reality is the style of your investing is going to determine what percentage of your cash flow is going to come from what. Okay, core type investments with lower leverage are going to yield significantly higher current cash flows. Value add and opportunity investments with higher leverage, with lower cash flows, are going to yield a significantly larger component of your IRR out of a terminal event. Okay, so it's not as simple as just saying you always get more out of the sale. You know, the reality is it depends on what you're investing in and how you're managing it. Okay, and you've seen it. You've seen it play with leverage, and you'll see the impact of that. We've done that. I've done it in some of the videos. You can see the more leverage you pile, right? The more leverage that you pile on, which is sort of synonymous with more value and opportunity investing, the less cash flow that you have currently, the more you have to rely on a terminal value for your IRR. Okay. They do talk about tax liability here. I don't talk about tax in this class for a couple of reasons. One, because it's a complex subject. That's a whole graduate program unto itself. But more importantly, Our goal should always be to structure real estate in a tax advantageous environment, at least at the asset level. Now, what I mean by that is whether we're using partnerships or we're using LLCs or LLPs or LLLPs or whatever structure we want, you know, or joint ventures or whatever, at the entity level, we should find a way to structure in a way that there's no tax friction whatsoever, so that the underlying owners of the entity get their pass-through share of income and expenses related to that activity. Okay, so I stay away from tax because really the gains and losses related to tax are much more, and most properly structured real estate transaction, an individual issue, not an asset level issue. Okay? That makes sense? Questions on? No? Yes? No?
Makes sense, that the gains and losses are more of an individual issue to the property.
Because they get pushed, that gets pushed down to the individual investor, okay? The supplemental on Argos, without teaching Argos, without doing Argos, it's very difficult to talk about this. The only thing that I brought, and I used to use this in another class, and it's been a long time since I did Argos. I brought, and you can look at them if you want during a break, I'll leave them up here. We used to do target sheets for all the different inputs in Argos. Who doesn't know what Argos is? There's some, you're new in the program, you're not in the program. You don't know what
I've
it
never
is.
seen it. I've never like used it.
Okay, so there's a company out there called I think it's called Altus. There's a company out there called, I think, Altus, which owns different software products. One of the products they own is a suite of software called Argos, and it really is the de facto modeling software in the real estate industry. I went ahead and I'm going to precursor what you're going to hear in next week's videos, which is office, retail, and industrial are really not suited to be modeled in Excel. They can be, and I'm going to show you how to do it. But those are asset classes that really belong in Argos. Okay, when you start adding the complexity of TI and leasing commissions, when you start dealing with probability of leasing, right? It's very easy in a multifamily model to play with vacancy, but it's much harder when you've got actual lease structures in place to figure out what vacancy is going to be in Excel. You can do it, I'm not telling you can't do it, but imagine if you own a building with 75 tenants. You know, you own a small office building and they're all 500 to 1,000 square foot suites, and you got 75 tenants. How do you model that in Excel? You're going to see that in the video because I've taken a stab at it and I'll show you how to do it. But Argos, which is a database product or a database solution, really does tackle that issue in a much cleaner way. What most development businesses will do is they will model those assets in Argos and then dump the results into Excel. Then you can manipulate, okay? Then you can play, you can overlay leverage on it, you can do CapEx, you can do whatever it is that you want, okay? You can calculate all your return profiles, but Argos really is the tool to use. So what I would encourage you, and I got the clarification from, I don't know if you heard from Dr. Forgy, so you do have to take Argos in the program. You don't get certified unless you pay for the certification. It's an additional test you need to do with Argos, but I would encourage anyone who wants to work in the industry to get certified in Argos, okay? Take the extra step. Don't get an A in the class. Forget what you get in the class. Get the Argos certification, because that's what's going to help you. And any development business out there that's worth its, you know, its grain, it uses Argos throughout the world. Yes, sir.
Do you know how much the exam is?
Listen, from memory, the entire online program, including certification, used to be, when I got involved with this, because I got involved, this is when we brought this into the program like 9 years ago, was like $1,100. But you're paying a certain amount now for the course. So it's probably another, you know, $400 or $500. You don't have to get certified through the program. Argos does practically every month a course somewhere in South Florida. You go to their website, and you could go to the New Horizons Center at the Midway Mall, or, you know, wherever here in Broward or wherever in Palm Beach County, and do an 8-hour intensive, and you get certification. So you don't have to do it through here, I'm saying, but if you want to work in the commercial real estate industry, if you want to work in banking related to real estate, okay? If you want to work in investment sales related to real estate, you need to know Argos like the back of your hand, okay? So if you're going to be an architect, you don't need to know Argos, okay? So you don't have to worry about that, all right? So, you know what's the old saying, garbage in, garbage out. What you put into Argos may be a very powerful tool, but if you put bad inputs in there, you're going to get bad data. And Argos is like a black box. So Argos is all about what you put into it. So Excel is a lot more transparent. You can send me your spreadsheet and say, my data table doesn't work, can you help me? And I can follow all your formulas. Can't do that in Argos. In Argos, your inputs are everything. So you create the suites, you create the size of the suites, okay? You create the leases with all the information that's in the rent roll, right? Things we just talked about. The terms, the increases, right? The expansion options. And then you start going through a series of assumptions. You got, because to model, you got to do what ifs, right? So in multifamily, it's been very simple. We've just said, oh, well, vacancies at 5%, and we're going to drop it to 4.5%, and we're going to do a sensitivity analysis between 3 and 6%, and we see what the result is. But if you've got an office building with 50 tenants, all having different expirations on their leases, and not everybody's going to stay, you can't just say, hey, my occupancy is 75% today. What is it in 6 months when 3 tenants blew out and 2 signed leases? You don't know. Argos does that for you. But then you've got to provide information so that the program can work, right? So it works under the concept of probability of renewal, right? And then it also talks about when a tenant vacates, right? What happens to that space? How long does it stay dark? And then it starts asking you, and what are the leasing commissions that you got to pay? And is this first generation space or second generation space? How much TI are you going to spend? Okay, so the inputs, and you can see the target. So you can see here, you can put in all of your operating expenses, you can put in all of your lease specification. But at the end of the day, what's critical is put the lease terms we just talked about, put all the lease terms and all the probability related to the renewal of that. Because at the end of the day, operating expenses are very easy to model. You can do that in Excel. The leasing structure is what's very difficult to model in Excel. Yes, Cole?
Would you say that it translates to the operating level? So like it's obviously much, like what you're saying, it's much more difficult to model out the industrial, retail, office portion. Would you say that on an operational standpoint, it would be the same? Like it's much easier for us to get our feet wet and say multifamily or smaller multifamily because it's not as much to account for?
No, not at all. I mean, listen, running a large industrial, you can run an industrial park that has 1 million square feet and you might only have 2 tenants.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
So operationally, that's very simple, right? So this just has to do with modeling,
okay.
With financial projections,
okay.
right? So there's a reason why we started with multifamily in Excel. It's a lot easier to model, okay? And you'll get, I don't want to bullet punchline, go through the video next week. I did it last night, and you'll see that there's a very intricate way to build these models in Excel, and then there's a, sort of down and dirty way to do it too, which may give you indicative data. But I go back to, I'm telling you, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, if you're dealing with institutional level assets. If you're looking for financing from any serious lender in the industry, they're going to ask you for the Argos run. If you're looking to buy or sell an asset, the Argos run's going to be involved. If you're going to the capital markets because you're selling your business, people are going to look at our REIT A is buying REIT B. They're going to look at the Argos. When we sold our business, and we had 120 operating assets. What's the first thing that all the potential buyers ask for? They ask for all the individual Argos runs and the combination. And then ultimately they could tweak all the different assumptions. Okay? But that's the de facto tool that's used in the industry. So that's why I just can't harp enough on the importance of taking that, depending on what your ultimate career path is, your ultimate you're really becoming proficient at it. And that's why, Brian, you know, if you really want to sort of learn more, I go beyond the course here. I did the course. I got certified to teach it. And the way I got certified to teach it was I took the course online. And it's practice. It's like anything else. You got to work it a lot in order to get good at it, you know. So if you're going to be an analyst, if you're going to start somewhere as an analyst, you really got to spend the time on it. Okay?
Is there a reason why it's not transparent, like I said, like specifically for security?
Because it's a database. Okay, so all this data goes in all these buckets, and then there's a whole bunch of applications that are done to it, right? And then you get this output. So you can't go into the program and see how it functions. You see outputs, and some of the outputs are very easy, but again, look at the video next week. If you've got 75 leases out there, all expiring at different times, with different reimbursements, that's the other issue, right? Some leases might be gross, some might be net, right? So you've got all these different mishmashes of the way income is coming into an asset. Okay? So, anyway, I don't have anything else on the textbook. Yeah? Any questions? Did anybody have any questions on the textbook? I'll leave this Argos thing here if anybody wants to take a look at the inputs, the target sheet. So anytime that anybody wanted to underwrite an asset acquisition or was going to develop, all the project managers had to sit down with our modeling group and essentially sign off on our target sheets, because we modeled what the project managers told us to model. You know, at least that's where we'd start anyway. So I think it's critical. Let me just leave these two out. So one's more an abridged version of the other. Okay. So anyway, we're going to do the rest of the day. I listen to the students. I don't always agree with them. That's okay.
No.
Because
say
no. Because you know what happens, Chase, for example. What happens is one day you'll get old, hopefully, and what's up?
Then you will see.
Then you'll see. Does that sound like, does your father tell you that all the time? Okay. No, but what happens is I wish I could translate it into English. It doesn't translate as well. There's a saying in Spanish. It says, "El diablo sabe más por ser viejo que por ser diablo." Okay? The devil knows more because he's old than because he's the devil, than because he's wicked, right? Age, gray hairs teach you a lot of things, right? So I know that a bank will give you more than one construction loan because I got gray hair, because I've done multiple loans with banks, so I don't have to believe this guy. No, so what happens is you know, you'll develop your own way of thinking. You also get old and set in your ways, and people change and all that, but I do listen to what students say, and I've heard that you all want to work a little bit more in class, so we're going to work a little bit more in class today, okay? So here's what we're going to do. We've got 3 hours of work. And those of you who took the time to work along with the hotel case study this week will find the case very simple. Everybody else is going to work the full 3 hours to get it done, but here's your case that I expect to have back in 3 hours and 10 minutes. You can take your breaks when you want. I'm totally available. I am totally available. I am totally available. Why are you people turning red? Huh? You should have been surprised. I think in the video I said, don't be surprised if you see something like this. So if you've been diligent, so hear this out before you start burying yourself into this, okay? If you've been diligent and you've done a hospitality model already, I will not grade this as I've been grading. Okay, so you're not going to get, not everybody's going to get 95s and 100s here. So if you don't name your file, you're going to lose points. If you don't name your tabs, you're going to lose points. If you don't leave your cursor where your instructor to look at it, you're going to lose points. If you don't have the right formatting, you're going to lose points. If you don't have the right answers, you're going to lose points. If you don't complete the entire assignment, you'll lose points. Okay, so not everybody's going to get 100 or 95 like everybody got last week. I think that everybody got 95s or 100s. That ain't going to happen. I don't know if ain't is a proper word. You can have lunch. You got plenty of time. And the other thing is, I would encourage you, read through the assignment. Read through the assignment before you start working. I do caution you, people like Miriam who are very, 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 very detail oriented, write me emails at night and say, you made an error on this sum. So I do have some errors because I'm working crazy, cutting and pasting and trying to get this video done so you guys are quick, right? So there, and I may have fixed some of them on my own, and some of it I may have fixed. And this is not exactly what was in the video, but it's very similar to it. Can you lose the earpiece, please? Oh, okay, if it's to the video, if you want to spend the time doing it with the video, that's fine, you can do that. Kenny, here you go. Okay, if you were diligent, make the changes. Look at the differences between what you've already done and what's in the case. Review it, and if you're done, then I will give you a link to next week's video so you can start working on Office. So that you can take advantage of the time you're here.
Or take advantage of our Saturday and working ahead.
This is the quiz and the in-class assignment all rolled into one.
Oh my.
Oh my.
See, I love how you're saying
Read
video.
through it. It's similar.
This might be mentioned in future case, and now you come in with the bombs. So we're working on today, and it's also the quiz, and it's also the assignment.
It's not a bomb, it's both. That way you don't have a quiz.
It's a sneaky surprise,
It's
but I like it.
But you like it, okay? There's no gimmies here. And I'm available.
Bye, Dan. Like some hotel music, like.
Yeah, I'll put soft music if that's okay.
That's more than okay.
I don't know how loud it would be, but some jazz or some guitar.
Some guitar for what?
No, the other one was better. Come on.
That's not.
Whatever you guys want.
Cool. What'd you play this?
Read through the case before you start working. Read through the assumptions, okay? Don't just start clicking away and go, where am I going? Get all the way through the end and see what you're being asked. Hey, and I want one spreadsheet. I don't want a spreadsheet with 4 tabs on it that have all. I don't want like all the other models that we've been building. Okay, I just want. I don't need.
Hospitality.
Yeah, I don't need spreadsheets with like 40 different notes on it. You could work on that one and then just extract it or copy it and send me the copy. Did you ask a question? Oh. got plenty of time, Jack. You don't get nervous. Just work. Just work. Just work. You all right, Dave? Good.
So if you're Professor San Miguel, you got a long way to go.
You all right, Paige? If someone thinks I'm missing something in the assumptions, maybe I am, let me know and I'll let everybody else know, but I think it should all be there. I decided I could see what
No, in the sense like,
Yeah, I made a mistake.
I want to put this in the pocket.
Yeah, I think you, yeah, thank you, yeah.
I think, and there's something else there that I made a mistake too, because I started growing it that year, I really need to grow it sort of from there. Yeah. That's one of the ones Marion picked up.
So when you purchase, when you sell. When you purchase,
Yes.
and when you sell.
Can I just clarify that you want these to increase with inflation from year one? Yeah? From year one?
Let me see.
From year one, you want
It says these revenues will be increased by the assumed annual inflation rate.
okay, from year one, yes, okay, I'll figure it out.
You guys know about that?
You can go on ahead and do it the way you did it, but notice what this says. I changed it yesterday, but because that's what I just did. I just said grow it by that. Obviously, there's to the extent that you've got changes in vacancy, that would be an issue, so you really would have to do both. Grow it
once you get a stabilized inflation, I mean, occupancy factor, then just inflation is the same answer. The number of rooms, and then once you get to year 4, then it's just the inflation rate, because the vacancy is the same. Okay. Guys, let's try to, I don't mind like a couple questions here and there, but let's try to listen to the music. Let's let the music go. I started when? What do the assumptions say? Or which line item are you talking about? Okay, so so you can do whichever way you want to do it, not based on that. Okay, so you can keep it or grow it, you know, it's not gonna. If you leave it that way, then it's easier. If you don't change it, then it's easier. So it seems directionally, it seems to be right. I don't know if the numbers are right, but directionally it seems to be right.
But before I got contract, our year was higher.
It should be.
Yeah, that's.
Okay, but this checks and go for a lot. Go up. What did the hard code?
Just the, like,
You should.
the.
That's the one, no, that's the one you should solve for, and this should be copied from that, because that's really the good start, right?
It wouldn't let me, it kept giving me errors, and I tried on the number,
What gave you an error?
the solver. So then I tried it on the other side.
What else do you have here?
And
Or all you right now? We just go sell by sell. Let's keep going on. Do what I just told you, save it right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can go back to it and just use solver.
do it on the unlevered.
And do it on the unlevered, yeah. Just save it so that you've got it. It should work.
Okay.
At the start, so if you want to start from the very beginning. Understand how to get ads. Okay, guys, try to work individually, please. The error? Yeah. Let me look at the solver thing you're solving for. Changing this, yeah. works that way, then leave it that
But
way.
if, I mean, theoretically, it should get the same answer, right?
I try to go to the very beginning, I start with unlevered, then I put levered on, so I would change the unlevered price first, and then just copy unlevered from levered.
Yeah.
I could never figure out why I couldn't get myself like $1,700 when I was multiple.
I think I originally had the wrong, I went down one column too far. I went to the ADR one. See, you can't just copy stuff, mimic stuff, you gotta read and understand, okay? Is that revenue or is that cost?
Oh, I see. So this would be cost and
I don't know, or just, I don't know.
figure it out. Okay.
And you doing? You doing? Chase, you doing?
Doing good.
Cole, you doing? You doing, James? Did you download the videos, Cole?
I mean, I do sometimes, but I also go through and I screenshot and I listen.
Oh, okay. Now, it just, it looked like you had downloaded, I was like, that's pretty big, it's a lot of data.
I'm about to use Solver, so
Okay.
I want to make sure I
So
do it right
before you use
for everything
Solver,
else.
save a file, save the file, okay? Save it first before you use Solver.
Save a separate one?
You could
Or just save it?
You could just save it, because you could always just do
Can you-
Solver. If you
can
don't
you
like the
undo?
answer, you just close it without saving, and then you reopen the file you were working
Can
with.
you undo a Solver?
No, you can't. You can
Doesn't
undo
make sense.
goal seek, but not Solver.
So,
Huh?
Killed me last time and solver and everything went wrong in mine.
Okay, but then that's why before you use Solver, save it. The way I use Solver is, I put Solver next to the number I want to change before I accept it. Okay?
I'm not good.
Okay, so now you're gonna use Solver, okay? Data, the Solver. No, yeah, you wanna set, that's right, you wanna set the purchase price? No. Okay, you got it backwards.
This is IRR.
Yeah, you got it backwards. You wanna set that to 15 is by changing purchase price. Found a solution. Go back down now. 15. Go to your data tables and make sure they still work.
This one doesn't. Well, I should probably just
Well, right, that's what you have to change that now, exactly. Yeah, look at that. Imagine that, it worked. You doing, Jack?
Yeah, I'll do
Just keep working.
it.
No, come on. Oh, so you can do it 1-1, or you can make it 0 and 2. I would just do it 0 and 2. I would say no commitment. Okay, that's what I would do. You doing all right? Good. Awesome. You dominating Isabel? Are you preparing to dominate?
Not yet, I'm preparing for it.
So, the only thing like that table is I have to change the prices and then redo the.
Yeah, you have to do that. Well, you don't have to redo the data table. You see that if you change the price of the data tables right, it should change the IRR. Just go into like the 18, change it to like, what do the instructions say?
About 500,000.
Okay, well then figure it out. Do what it says. Do what the instructions say.
On this next one, I think it should be 41, or do I go 41.5 on the next one?
You can do 41, you can do 41.5, whichever one you want, doesn't matter. Either one of them works. Now, but make sure that you're following what the instructions say, okay?
Doing there, John?
Kinda.
Kinda?
Kinda.
Brian, you doing?
Trying.
Anita, you're doing? What do we do with it? Even, it's in the video. You have your headphone? Huh? Let's do it. You don't want to go to the video. Let's do it. What is the input? What's the input of that? Okay, but what's the implication? So the video I talked about, there's only one other video I talked about what happens with. Closing fees. Remember that? Vaguely remember that. Vaguely. So, you go back yesterday, I asked for an instruction. So she said, I'll give you the term sheet. The term sheet goes there, conditions under which she's gonna make banks will go up. Anyways, that's not a commitment. I can't go to the contract and say, start working because I got somebody to pay. So I go to the bank and I say, should I accept the terms? Each newsletter. So basically, runs to a binding obligation from the bank to make a loan subject to the conditions of that loan in exchange for
financing. I said, financing, it's not like you can't get it, you can't add it to the loan. No, so you gotta put cash. So it's like a one-time cash payment. I hear my voice.
Different purchase prices. And he said,
But that already, I gave you that number, so typically, yeah, so there's two ways to do it. The way you're like, well, I'm gonna relax, you know, how much you actually sold, and so you'll calculate, you'll divide that by that, it'll be 50. I did it backwards, I gave you 50. So that's just a consequence, so you just multiply that by the number. That's just a metric that they use, I'm not telling you a story. That's the way in the industry they measure it. Okay. Yeah, so, you know, which is, I think it's like a part, it's basically, it's the way they, they say your yield is so much. Yeah. It's kind of like, somebody asked me the question, he said, well, I think Aisha asked the question, she said, you're getting, well, you're dividing gross price by number of apartments to get average per apartment. So you really should divide by the number of apartments. The 95% of the single population on this, it's still in cash flow. That would be the one that's the line. I really do care, okay, on a per unit basis. I want that yield.
Basically just distribute that across all,
Yeah. Yeah. So, look, I'm not a hospitality guy, but that's the way we do it. That's, yeah.
That's what I got. My purchase price, so RRR is
okay,
it's just in white, so I'm grabbing.
all that, yep. Now, did it work before?
It did this, but it didn't do the purchase price. Oh yeah, it did work.
So then why'd you mess with it, man?
Hey,
First lesson, if you got a data table that's working, don't mess with it, man. Okay, don't mess with it.
No.
Don't delete it and start again.
I promise you I
Because
changed these and it wouldn't change.
Murphy's Law is gonna mess you up. Okay, keep going. Now go.
I'm pointing to this.
No. Point to the purchase price.
Oh.
Is it levered or unlevered?
Guys, these are individuals, I mean, easy questions, but not like just working side by side, okay? This is, I want to listen to the music. Well, I don't wanna listen to it, some students wanna listen to the music. Yes, sir. Yeah, so I had an error in that. I at least had one error in that. I think I had the wrong, so I used RevPAR, I should have used that, that's number one. Let's see, room. So I think I did. That's where Mary wrote. She's increasing occupancy. She's right. She's saying increasing occupancy. We really need to increase the rate and then increase by the occupancy. So you can do it any way you want to. If you want to just go by inflation, that will figure it out. If you want to do it by the occupancy, that's okay, and it will after year 4. That's the way I want them doing it. And then just go by inflation. So I want that, the actual number of people to get. And with telephone, it doesn't matter because the cost should be the same. Yeah, it's net. Did you guys learn from this exercise? You guys learning? A little bit? It's a lot of information. That's why you're here. You learn a lot of information. You doing all right?
Yeah, I just, this part right here.
Yeah, that's not gonna help you though. Bing's not gonna help you.
No, I'm going.
Here's, if you ask Google for what I'm looking for, it probably will not have the answer. Yes, ma'am. What do you need? The videos are here right next to you live.
For this part, are we purchase price?
No, that's sales price. You'll have to solve for the purchase price. That's ultimately what you're looking to find. You should transfer what? That's the multifamily one? I don't know, I can't tell because this says sheet 2, so I don't know where you're.
This is from the hotel.
Okay.
So I'm saying I
Well, just make sure that it's, yeah, make sure it's the same, but if you've already done some work, you can cut it and paste it. But just make sure that I didn't change the assumptions, because I changed some of them, not all of them. Yeah, James, I'm coming, Yes, sir. Yeah, so, but I did, first of all, on the video, usually, you know, I use the RevPAR line, I should have used the revenue line. So in the video, if you just follow the video is wrong, okay? So that's. Oh, that's refreshing. I said that before. Well, you weren't there, but I said that, so you should use that line, not this one. Okay, so I that's number one. Now, Mary Well, here's what I said, and that's how I did it. She said, well, but market loss is different the first 3 years. And then you just continue to grow inflation and then do it by occupancy. You've got 200,000 available and then the next year you've got 25,000. Growing by inflation doesn't all the assumptions. So technically then, if you want to follow her logic, what you would do is you grow that by 3% and then multiply by the number of weeks. And then after year 4, then it just goes by inflation because occupancy doesn't change. How to do it here? Here's what I would do. The first 3 years you multiply by the number of room nights and then just go by inflation. Okay? Does that work? Kenny, you doing all right?
No, Do you have a question? Or not yet? Not yet? Let me know when you have a question. Okay, that's fine. That's right here. Bless you. Oh, boy, it didn't work in the residential, so I know it'll work now. That's called, you know, that's just Murphy's Law. If it didn't work before, it's not gonna work again. If it didn't work the first time, don't kick it. They just-
I'm struggling.
You did this in class last week, dude.
I know, I remember, sort of.
Okay, go to the dialog box, double click on that, and then go to help on this function, and it tells you what you have to put in each one.
So there's nothing interesting in that, would be.
Interesting good or interesting bad?
I don't know.
It doesn't have the right answer, so it doesn't look like it's interesting good.
I didn't change, I don't know that I changed.
You didn't change anything?
Yeah.
The IRR changed?
The only
That
thing I
can't be.
did, the only thing I did this was the
Can't be.
data show.
Can't be.
I don't think it can be that, I don't think I changed anything. Cause I haven't been working with it.
And then I would go back to the last saved version that you had and start again.
I could just run solver.
Or run solver again. Now, the problem is data tables don't lookups either.
And do that, if I run solver again, it'll be like.
The data table, if you've got one of the variables in the data table pointing to somewhere else, like the number you got read, like the purchase price, you might need to like re-hard, you might need to hard code that. Sometimes it doesn't like that.
Oh, so this is where all like.
Yeah, but that's gonna change.
Oh, yes.
Ah.
Oh, wait, it changed. I don't know where I go. It changed it here. It was, I swear it was 15%.
It's in the wrong place.
What,
You got a problem. Houston, we have a problem.
that's not good. Well, when you say it's not the
Apollo
right place,
13, Houston, we have a problem.
when you say it's not in the right place, what do you mean?
You know what I was telling you before, there's a problem in your plumbing there somewhere.
It's all.
Okay, guys, one at a time.
Don't use RevFar?
Well, it's already working.
So don't use RevFar? What?
I did for the road,
So what's the new RevFar?
Yeah.
and used. Yeah, what is it's
I don't know, what does this thing tell you to do?
it's asking me for from 135 on, but I'm not sure if it's sell to year one or the sell for.
Did I tell you how many to use or not?
Yeah, from 135. What should I use? So I should use this.
I would use what this says. I would use what this says. 1 second. Well, Judson, you had a question?
Yeah, so in that
Yeah,
video,
as far
yeah,
as
you,
the,
yeah, because it was a thing, that was the wrong line, you gotta get it from revenue.
Oh, you gotta get this from the
From
rev,
revenue,
not
yeah,
the,
not from
that's the
that.
only, that's the only
That's the
mistake.
only-
That, I think that's the,
Can you repeat that one more time?
What was it?
When you're doing the ancillary incomes, when I did the video, I picked up from the RevFar line, and I should have picked up from the revenue line. Okay, so it should be from the revenue line, not RevFar.
did you rerun it?
These are basically what we're doing, this, and then measure something line.
Yeah, I thought you heard that. So when you looked at the video,
Can I call it a different hotel name?
you can call it whatever you want to call it. You can call it Judson Hotels, dude.
How about, alright?
That, you will not be penalized on that one, Judson.
I'm just making sure. I know it's a strict procedure.
If you look at the ancillary income, you look at the ancillary income? No, come up to the cash flow. When I did the video, when I was calculating this ancillary income, I used no, ancillary. So rooms are not ancillary. Telephone, food, beverage, and other income are. You'll notice that I used the ADR, the full revenue number in rooms. But when I went down and copied, I went all the way down to the, when I did telephone, keep going down. I grabbed the 0.8, I just went too far, and then I just copied it all the way down. So it's actually coming from the RevPAR line, and it really should be coming from the revenue line. So you can't just, you gotta observe critically. RevPAR is a calculation of revenues multiplied by occupancy. But when you're building the cash flow, you don't use RevPAR, you use revenues. So
this line here is the same.
no, I'm not saying, come up to that 1711 line is wrong. Because that should be 15 cents, not the 8. You should be picking from, not from that, not from that bucket. You should be picking from here, from this variable, not from that one. Okay. Alex, what do you need to know?
Multiply by occupancy to get the percent. So yeah, I was looking for what was that percent.
RevPAR is a calculation that takes revenues and multiplies it by occupancy. For the IRR to work or for the data tables to work? Okay, the way I've gotten it to work is I only use solver for that number, and then everything else is a formula.
So you would multiply the average room rate by the room rates to get the total.
I would multiply what?
You would be multiplying the room nights by the average room rate of the price.
Okay, does that sound right to you?
Yeah.
Okay, then use it. It sounds right to me. You know, just think through. Don't just do what I do. Think through it. It sounds right to me.
I didn't watch it, I just,
Delete that. Delete that. Delete that. Okay. What's go to 235. Go to 235. Go to 204.
It's 250 bits.
Not 204. Okay, all right. So go to 204.
If the premium is 250.
Are you solving for purchase price or are you solving for years? Years? Okay, go. Yeah, go. Make holding years 10 for a second. Oh, probably you don't have to table. So, yeah, make the holding period 10. Make a holding period 10 on this for a second. Say somewhere along the way so that you don't make too many changes that you can't go back to. Okay, make that 10. Go back there. Okay, now go down and see what this do guys. No, it's not there. Okay, so data table is not working at all. What are these numbers? These are numbers, you sure they're numbers? Oh, because you have it stopped. Same thing that happened to me? Okay, now you can make it automatic now. Okay. Okay, it's working. It's the same thing that happened to me. I was like sitting there for, that's when I went to the boat in the video. Did you watch that? You got to that part? I took a break, I went to the boat, and I figured that was my same exact problem. Same exact problem, I'm coming close about it. You don't have to cry, Juliana.
So, now that you told me about the rep part, would you recommend making this 10 years since it's going by the annual inflation rate, since this cost increase by the annual inflation rate?
Pero what did I tell you the room rates were? Oh, you got it. No? Okay, yeah, you got it right. Okay, keep going.
Right, and I just wanted to know if you would recommend just making this 10 years instead of showing just 4.
You don't need to, because when you go to your thing, I mean,
Right, but
you can, that's one way to do
I
that.
dragged it all the way to year 4, and I'm wondering what's the best possible way of it.
That's one way to do that. That's the way that I would do it. If you wanna make 10 all the way across, that's fine, but then you're making a ton of assumptions all the time. You can drag that formula across now, right?
No, because it would just, it's not referenced to 1 because all these costs change by the inflation rate.
Those aren't costs, those are revenues.
I'm sorry, the revenues.
Okay, so come back again a second, come back a second. Okay, just get out of the cell for a second. Okay, so the telephone's not right.
Yeah, I don't know why telephone is twice what it is on yours.
He just explained it to you because I used a ref par line in the video, so I made a mistake on that.
Oh, the telephone.
How do you do the formatting for like cost of debt and equity, like case?
I'm going to show you that in a second, but let me finish with you. What are you multiplying?
The revenue, the rooms times
No. But is this revenue per occupied room? It's 15 cents per occupied room. I understand that. So, and there's a little nuance here. In theory, you should grow it by inflation. And in the first 3 years, because occupancy is changing, you would multiply it by the room rates. I didn't do that in the video. That's a Merriam observation, which is accurate. If you just want to grow it by that, that's fine. But it's not by the revenue. You've got a problem there. You've got a problem there. You've got a problem in that formula. Just look at it. Think about it. Just pull yourself out of the cell and look at the things you're multiplying. Go to those references and see what's in F9 and E69. Okay. How do you make those things is you have to go to formulas. No, go to insert, and then go to equation. Yeah. No, not equation, it's not an equation, but envelope. So you can pull symbol there. Not smiley face, is it? I don't want, how come that doesn't come up on mine? Math symbols. Okay, so you may find stuff there, and you may find a K, you may not, no, K you won't find, but D, here, you know what's better? Go to equation, go to equation. Just go to equation, okay, and then grab, no, go insert new equation. Let me come to my, let me come to my PC one a second. Come around a second. Yes, no, you can carry it all the way across. Even though, because you got to build a 10-year model, don't you?
The 10-year model.
Cash flow model,
Yeah.
which is also the revenue schedule, right?
Right, so this graph.
So this is the revenue schedule.
Guys, these are individual projects. The problem is those maps are different. So, if I go to insert here, I come here. video. Where the heck did I do this? No. You know what here's what I do it. Here's what I do it. Hold on, here's what I do it. No, here's what I do it. Right, so I do it in Word. So what you do is you want something like that, and what you're looking for is one on top of the other. So you would want K, and then B. You saw that?
Yep.
And then you just copy that and paste it on Excel. Learn something new every day, huh? Hey, you got one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Doing all right, Ramon?
I'm alright.
One day at a time, one step at a time. Did you fix it?
I really change the system. But there's see how that could be higher than 50%.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is directionally, you seem to be right though. I mean, get it the best you can, right?
How does this work if we have, where it's
Yeah, where did you point to? Point to the first one.
yeah, I said that point to
That one,
this
yeah.
one.
No, not to the available rooms. You pointed to the ADR. I don't know, what do you?
Yeah, sorry.
Click on the data table. You went to C74 and C70, go up top. Yeah, is that your assumption for occupancy?
So you're one,
Yeah, that's what it is. Do something, just to play with it, again, save it, and then point to the last one, and see if it's gonna give you a slightly different answer. Point both to the last one and see what you get.
Should I be like losing millions of dollars when I add my loans, my debt service to my?
If you borrow too much, yeah, dude.
Okay.
Dude, but you're losing money every year.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Sounds like you got a problem, dude.
Okay.
Dude.
You got a leak somewhere.
Dude, you sound like the guy I met with yesterday.
I know.
Yeah, you got a problem there. Something's not right.
Okay.
Go to year one. No, go to year one. And you're in the formula of the IRR. Do yourself a favor. Go and run one whole period of 1 year. Run a whole period of 1 year. That's what go down. No, but go to, does it solve for an IRR? No, see, there's a problem in the formula in IRR here. Yeah, of course. So that's the, there's no reason why you should have a negative, you should have a positive IRR, I don't see why you should. Well, you get a situation like that, that correct things out, like undo all this stuff that you just did, like save, you know, what I do is I will, like, just redo the whole math table, like, delete everything. And you go and make the whole period 6, which is working, right? I always, like, when I do the 10-year, I always leave the whole period at 10, the last thing I do is go to 6 and solve it.
Oh, you know.
And, you know, go back to your baseline at 10 and see if that works, right?
built.
It will, so you gotta,
Okay.
you gotta rerun it. But your IRR should change. It doesn't matter. You're at 1, I would go to 10, and see if it works all the way to 10. Go down below, see, you got a problem with your leverage formula. Yeah. You got a problem with your debt. Your if formula is wrong. Your net cash flows for distributions are off. Formula for net cash flow for distributions from levered, there's something wrong with that formula. There's something wrong with that formula. Of course, go to the next one. You gotta have a conditional statement in there. Just like you have in the levered one.
I switched it to the one for the. It looks crazy at first, but then.
So directionally, it looks right.
I don't know when it's gonna.
Well, because maybe at 40%, you know, it's really too good enough. One way you can kind of just sort of test it is, you can have 15% IR. Where does a 15% IR kind of get you? It sort of gets you 165, 70. It sounds like what most of your models build at. So that sounds like directionally that's pretty good.
You know, it makes sense to get low at, and then at 135 and 40, it seems like it's really low.
Yeah. Okay? Yes, Miriam? I don't know. Where? What is it? What do the instructions say? Miriam, build a 10-year model, and your solution is for 6, but build a 10-year model. Okay. What do you mean you're not going to use the numbers? Right, but build a 10-year, get used to building a 10-year model.
But for the loan, I can make 6, like the schedule, the resale schedule, or I want to do the 10 things.
Build the whole model for 10 years. You already had it done. You did it yesterday. You sent it to me. But Miriam, with what you had, if all you got to do is change the hold period, it gives you the answer you were looking for, right? Without changing anything.
Are you guys
So
talking
don't
about this?
overthink
Are you guys
things.
talking about this one?
Yeah, do a 10-year model. That's it. And you're just going to change for the hold period. That's why the reason I taught you how to use the conditional statements. Just hear me out for a second. Build a 10-year model. The reason I taught you how to use the conditional statements was so that at any given point in time you could say, hey, what happens if I sell in year 3? What happens if I sell in year 7? But build a 10-year model so that you've got the whole ball of wax. Okay? You all right, Cole? You all right, Alec? You're doing well. Judson? You're doing good?
How's it look? Clean?
That's a nice clean haircut you got, yeah?
Thank you.
Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah.
You look clean.
You look all right.
Hey, we're 1 hour into our work. We got 2 hours to go. And
Can
we're
you just not say that? You make us feel cheated. Can you just say,
make you feel what? Chickadee?
just like 15 minutes, that's it.
Well, no, then it's only 15 minutes. You're going to say, why didn't you tell me? Ah! You have 2 full hours.
Saying 2 hours, 2 minutes.
Okay, I'll put it on the board. I'll put it on the board. But I probably can't help myself.
I know. We know.
Brian, you all right?
Yep. Cost of sales would be 20%.
Yeah, whenever you gotta leave, yeah, do everything. That's what I told you. Do as much as you can, and that's. So when I got a formula like that, what I do is I just copy the whole formula from here to here, and then I figure out what I need to fix. Okay, then I start looking up and saying, okay, if what, so, you know, obviously, right, so you're gonna, exactly, so that's the easiest way to. Yes, Mary, want to comment? Miriam, you overthink things. Are you from Switzerland or something? You can put whatever, yeah, for this you can do that, but like that number, you can even not have anything there if you don't want, because with the conditional now, it doesn't really matter. We don't use that for anything anymore, right? We do? Well, it does here, but the reality is we're working on in the resale schedule and in the measurements down there, we don't really use that anymore. So you could leave it at 7, yeah, it would be year 7 NOI for a year or sale at the end of year 6. Yes.
Okay, so my resale, it will be on year 6, not year.
No, it's on year 7.
No, for the NOI, la compra es 10.
Okay. You don't have to change the debt service. If I buy a house today and I take out a 30-year mortgage, Miriam, just hear me. Just listen. I buy a house today. I take out a 30-year mortgage. At the end of year 3, I sell it. I don't adjust my mortgage. I just take whatever's outstanding at that point and sell it. That's why you've got this debt schedule set up. Isabel, what are you doing?
I'm taking a screenshot of
her
video.
answers?
No, of your video.
So that you could just cut and paste?
No, I have 2 different acquisition tables.
Okay.
There were several times in the videos where you said take pictures of it, screenshots.
Yeah. I have so many.
I did say that because a lot of people have done that. There's something wrong with your formula there, dear. Why? Because it's not working, is it? It seems to be working in levered. It doesn't seem to be working in unlevered. You don't have a conditional statement there. So you may want to copy what you did in levered and just change the parameters. That's what I just did with Naisha. I would probably copy that and put it up and then change the variables that need to be changed so that both my levered and my unlevered would change whenever I do the holding period. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Kenny, you're still deep in thought? We have 1 hour and 54 minutes. I'm just kidding. I just did that for Isabel. I swear anxiety levels just raised a little bit.
I think I finished it.
Let me, here, bring it up. Ramon, you all right? You doing? Wait there for me. This guy. For the advertising debt, you're saying? Or- No, right, you do the same thing we did last week. So you can actually cut and paste that and put it into the spreadsheet, what we did last week. Okay, so about what you're thinking. Let me just check a couple of things. Do you have a mouse? Bring a mouse, please. So you've got a slightly different assumption, which is okay, so you actually started, you started stuff by inflation. Oh, I see, oh no, you started cash flow, because you actually already inflated it there.
I'm really
It's like
no,
different.
no, no.
Let me do something for a second.
Doesn't matter, it's relevant. It really is. Yeah, I'm talking about the one time that value you're Yes.
Fix these things. Fix that. You just finished this.
You got it? You're a superhero.
And then the next cell is
think so. Yeah, did you check your assumptions? I think you need to check your assumptions. You're just copying and pasting from the video. You gotta check the assumptions and make sure that they're right. You sure? I didn't change mine. Let's just look at down here.
Oh, I know.
So we've got a difference in debt service here. Let's just take a look at your debt. So let's take a look, this is your purchase price, this is what you're adjusting, this is what you solve for? Yep. You solve for that at year. At what year?
year 6.
Why is this running out to year 10?
I don't know, but when you change values on, like you change the 125, the 153 to 150, it changes my.
I understand that's gonna change out, but you're going running out all the way out to 10 years here. What's the hold period on this?
6. You just change it.
I want to go, is that what you're submitting?
No, because you said that
Oh,
we
no,
needed to
no.
build a 10-year.
And then you got, but if you want me to review it, right?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, now you gotta run solver on this, right? See, because what's gonna happen now is you gotta run solver.
I'll do it again.
Yeah, you gotta run solver now. So once you built the 10, you gotta move this to 6, and then solve
Yeah,
for the IRR it says.
and then I can submit it.
And if you want me to look at it, I'll look at it. If you wanna get a better grade, or I'll have time, I'll look at it. Well, I don't have time.
I can do it right now. If you don't mind, I can do it right here.
As long as that's what you wanna do, that's fine. I mean, it sounds like it's a hot potato, like you just wanna get rid of it.
I've been working on this a lot, so I thought it was somewhat
You know what I'm saying?
Guys, let's stop talking and work, please. to your purchase price. Come down to your data table. You can just come to the data table. This doesn't seem right to me. Okay, that doesn't seem right. So this data table you gotta work on. Because our room rate during the whole projection period is much higher than that. And our occupancy is probably much higher than that. Okay, so this isn't right. Okay, notice that, look at the slight change. So this table you gotta work on a little bit, okay? Okay, and I don't know what you're pointing to here. 68 and 64. What are 68 and 64? 64? 68. So it looks like you got it to the right thing, okay? But you might want to just, you know, sort of delete it and, okay. But let's go to purchase price for a second. I want to come here too, because I've got a couple $1 million difference, and what I want to take a look at is your NOI again. Let's take a look at my NOI.
It's the same as Andrew's, so we probably have the same. If it's wrong, we have the same approach.
That's close enough to mine. That's close enough to mine. Let me go to the year 22. So let me come over here, hold on, let me come over here. So let me look at your NOI. Let me look at your 10 NOI. We're not radically off there. Radically off there. We got a big difference in debt service, okay? I don't know where your debt service is coming from. Where your debt service comes from. What's PV? D181? What's D181? What's wrong, dude? It's not your present value. Look at your assumptions. Look at your assumption section. Well, you already got it calculated, bro. What happens if you do this? See, what happens is you got to change this formula to have this needs to point up to here. Okay? And then you got to copy that across for both things.
Do you want to fix that still? You want to copy that across?
No, you don't. Well, you can. No, if you copy it, yeah.
Only for the first one.
Yeah, yeah. No. You fix it there, right? You fix it. So just hit function 4, whichever one. Okay, and that's it, right? Okay, it's not. Okay. Oh wait, hold on. Let me see if I didn't change the CLTV. I gotta change my purchase. Okay, now we're closer to purchase price wise, but you gotta fix that for me. Because we did that last week pointing to there because we didn't have the, you gotta have the variable here. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Isn't there a beginning balance from that same
Yeah,
side?
I guess it could work. I just like to always point up to the top just to make sure that there's no.
It's like one more layer of.
Yeah, just one more layer of complication, okay? But hold on, so forget what I just did for a second. Let's see. Forget what I just did for a second. Let's just do something. Everyone's solved. No, but we're still off on still off on purchase prices. You're what, at 37 million? Oh, okay, you're like at 40, okay. Yeah, you've changed it now. You're like at 40. That's close enough. Okay, now, make sure that, now, understand what I'm saying? This works right now, but you should, rather than pointing to here, your formula's here, you should point to here in the future. Right? You should always want to go more directly as upstream as you can to your assumptions, okay? So that your data tables work well, okay? But it looks like your purchase price is right. It looks like your hold period works, okay? And let's see your data table. It looks like. Guys, if you have any questions, ask me. That's close enough. Let me see. Yeah, you may want to clean this up, right? You may want to clean that up. Just clean that up a second. Just come underneath it. And you got to redo this data table. Okay, so all I would do is change these numbers here. Well, for these two. Okay, because I think you're okay there. Okay, you may want to make that one 40. Okay, I clean these up, and then you got to redo this data table again. Okay, there's something's not right here. Okay, but it looks good. All right. Judson, Alec, you have a question? Isabel, you have a question?
Yes, but.
Right. I actually get negative numbers instead of just numbers. I actually get negative. But then I actually, believe it or not, I actually triangulate right at 115.75 because I get 15, believe it or not.
Does it say 510 or 5?
Like 10, but I didn't change mine, so you know I left a broader range.
Should I
So
add
you do 115? No, it's okay. Look, you would just. Yeah, okay, but you don't have to, you can just do that. But you don't need to.
He had
So,
changed some of the assumptions, so
I think I need that.
before matches with mine.
Yeah, 500,000, so you gotta adjust those.
Yeah,
Okay, this directionally seems to be right. Yeah, I have different numbers there, but close enough, okay? I don't know if your formula's right here. Yeah, it looks like they are. Okay, go out. Okay, you might want to put an underscore there, okay?
Oh, I actually wanted to ask you the 490 from the cash.
Yeah, it looks to me like,
about the same.
again, you understand why you would want to in the future reference up to here.
Yeah,
Okay.
because that's your root.
Okay. This doesn't seem, is that right? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because it was like negative for the first 3 years.
Yeah, looks like you're there. Looks like you're there, yeah.
Looked like before.
Just format, yeah.
So on these, would you do $1 and then?
No, probably not. I wouldn't double underscore, I would just leave it like that, it's, you know.
Just double underscore the bottom.
Yeah, just the bottom, yeah. Okay? And now this, you should underscore this here.
Yeah, that's,
Okay?
sure.
You should underscore that, and this is this plus those two, right? So that's okay, yeah. But I would just underscore that. Okay? You can just go ahead and just, you have to hit zeros, right? And then copy the formatting across. Can we do that? Look, and just across. Now you still have nothing. Now you gotta fix that there. Okay? All right. Miriam, do you have a mouse? You don't have a mouse? How do you work? That's really hard.
How did you do the last data table?
Where are you at? $192,000. No,
These are your 4.
ADR and occupancy? Genius.
No, but that's been fixed. You asked that question, and I think that's been fixed. Did you solve for IRR yet? What are the instructions here?
What's that?
It doesn't look like it. Did you read the instructions? Read at the bottom of the page. And then come back. That's okay. You come back, we'll keep working through it. Naisha.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
That's why the price doesn't
Used
look good.
year 4 ADR
Doesn't
and
look
year
good.
4 occupancy.
Okay, so there's a problem there that I need to. Let's go take a
It
look
doesn't
at
give me
those.
like
You've got that in
good
6.
results.
Let's take a look at your data tables. Um,
It's not easy.
Yeah,
Did it work?
It gives me a bad percentage.
this doesn't look right either. Right, because if we look for about 15, actually, yeah, that is right, but
The whole thing is formatted.
Yeah, it's one. I mean, that's what I.
yeah, it's that, I get the same thing, but that's more happenstance than anything else, I think, really. No, you're not in here, no, it doesn't matter, you're using different, you're using occupancy and ADR, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
But, so it makes sense that this would be negative. I don't have the 45, so I got minus 23, I've got a different number. Okay, directionally. Yeah, so directionally, that's not that far off. But you said you had the extra one was there. Okay, so let's come up here to take a look at your NOI.
So I just made a change, and I think maybe that's what the problem is.
Okay. You got much bigger loss the first year than I have. Listen to you.
For the, I changed this to 10%.
That's okay, but that shouldn't impact anything.
But there's a bunch of stuff there.
No, there shouldn't be. I didn't make any, the only ones that were dependent on that should be sales. And that doesn't go anywhere because you've got a resale schedule.
This number is based off that.
No,
Everything is based off that.
No, but this is acquisition. It has nothing to do with year 7. Plus, that should be sold or it's giving you
Yeah,
that.
yeah, so I'll give you that number, but the reason why I said this is when I look at
Yeah, but where does it go? Where does it go? Yeah, that's the only goes there, but that should, from there, it shouldn't go anywhere else. Because where? No, so we had that built at one point, we don't really need that anymore. Okay, so let's come up here, let's go take a look at your revenues first, okay? And they were close enough there. Let's go like to 2005. There's no revenue and gross margin. Okay, let's take a look at operating income. We're close enough. Let's take a look at NOI.
I'm just gonna show them.
We're close enough with NOI. So debt service is different, okay, so. This is commas, not dollar signs. These. Okay. Okay, I don't like to embed this here. You can, but you should have that service schedule. So you've got it here. You should just point out. You shouldn't replicate, okay? Let's take a look, since you've got it set up here. Just check something. to the ones down there. Okay, you could just, yeah, just calculate it down there and reference it up, okay? You definitely don't want pennies here, right? You didn't make me have pennies here, right? Okay, can we save this a second? Let's run solver again. Take a little while, so. This is set up to 15, and we want to change 129, just to make sure. Just hit it again, just to make sure that you get the same value in there. No, not at 30, not at 30, not at 30, that's right, but I'm looking for the cash flows right now because there's something happening here. Let's see. There's an error in video. Where's your summation? When I built video, I only added these two and I meant to go all the way down. No, so that's wrong. So now, let's just solve it real quick. I'm not even gonna look. Let's just run solve. Yeah, I can see. You got this on the solve.
Like they all got.
Don't send me a file with all these, okay, please.
You have to do it, but you have to do it,
Okay. So, yeah, now we're talking, now we're close enough, okay? So, it looks like I just, you got,
click on the first one.
yeah, so it's NOI less CapEx, so it should be NOI minus all that, not just a summation of that, right? So it's 1,000,001 less 700,000. Okay? And, yeah, and then it starts cleaning, it starts cleaning itself up after that. I mean, I think mine doesn't work exactly like, we've got slight differences in NOI. Actually, I'm negative the first 3 years too. We've got some slight differences. I'm not sure why. Did you? Yeah, 342, 28, 11. Yeah, other income. Why Why is other income, did you fix that one? What's other income?
Yeah.
Did I not change that? I didn't change mine. So if I change mine now. See, I should have done the first one. I thought I had it. I guess I had. Okay. Let me do solver on mine. Look at what you got to do is take a look at your data tables, make sure that make sure your data table still works. At 39 and change, yeah, we're close out. So make sure your data tables come down to your data tables, and make sure that they still work. Okay, you got to fix that. Okay, and something's not right. Something's not right. Come down. Something's not right in your data table here. Okay, so you got to fix that and look at look at your look at your two-dimensional one. Yeah, that seems to be right. Do me a favor, get rid of the 50. Just go 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 because it's going to drive you crazy. Analysis by paralysis. Okay, but it looks like you're pretty much there. Did I? Okay, then leave it that way. Sorry. That's why it was driving me crazy. Okay. All right, Jose Pablo, you're done?
Yeah, I just wanted to check the final table.
Okay, and then you're going to start working on office. Right. The easy
You're right.
Purchase price is $39.9. Yeah, we're there, bro. Yeah, so save it, send it to me, and I'll send you a link to Office. You start working on Office. Okay? You got headphones? But you can just sit in the back, like, and just start listening to it.
Okay.
Yeah, don't leave. I mean, like, you know, you got to take advantage of all the time here. As soon as I get it from you, I'll send it to you, Jose Pablo. Okay. What does the assumption say?
Well, it's telling me that it's 20%
Of room revenues. Espérate, déjame ver. Dice que la cagué. Could be. No. Rooms is a rooms.
Okay, so you fixed it later.
If I had it wrong, I might have fixed it later, yeah.
Oh.
And then you would just find out the lines.
Yeah, but you gotta make sure that if you've got any, because that has a fixed, yeah, but that has a fixed, that's anchored, that has an absolute reference down here.
No, I have to.
Okay, if you put.
I like them down there. I know my assumption. But I have them. I know what you do.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Because I have my assumption tables up here.
Okay, that's fine.
budget, the variable expenses, rather than putting it
Did
out.
did I call them variable expenses?
Well, you
Model?
actually called them,
You may wanna call them operating expenses.
operating expenses.
You may wanna call them operating expenses. They may be variable in nature, but you may wanna use like underscores to get rid of all those dollar signs and all that.
This one?
I don't know, I mean, the one.
Yeah, I
Cause if you clean that up, believe it or not, that might help your grade. Without pennies, dude. Okay, okay, conceptually, that doesn't look bad. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but it sounds like you're in the right general ballpark, okay, if I'm looking at the revenues. I don't remember all the numbers off the top of my head, but that seems about right, okay? That seems about like, sounds like you're on the right path, okay? Jose Paz, will you send that to me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna send you the office link.
Alright.
You're gonna enjoy the office one minute. Or if you wanna go sit outside and watch it, that's cool.
Alright.
Well, don't just leave. That would be bad. You might not get all your attendance credits then.
That's low.
Guys, I still even have it back in my computer.
Andrew,
Yeah.
that's not low, dude.
That's low.
Attendance is being physically present. And I know that there's,
He
how
was
much
present on
time
the
is there
videos.
left?
An hour and 15.
Okay, Andrew, I got yours. I don't have yours, Jose Pablo, you sure you sent it to the right professor?
Yeah, I did.
You sure about that?
Yep. Sent at 3:11, so a minute ago.
Espérate, I'm gonna send you, and just came in. And Andrew? Okay, you both should get it, it's an over thing, okay, yes, nice. You leave it over the whole 10, because you don't have to change that formula. If there's nothing beyond that, it's not, it doesn't. It's like with the IRR formula. It's not gonna hurt. If it did, then this wouldn't, that conditional statement wouldn't work. That would be like really complicated to do this. Okay? So you don't have to change those NPV formulas. That's the beauty with this.
So what's a revenue schedule?
It's
No, that's the revenue expense assumption schedule. Alright, whatever, that works.
oh, here it is.
You're close. Let's go take a look and see where we can fix it. It's close, okay? Did you understand my note now? No, okay, listen. This is not a multiplication. It should be. No, but then that's a circular formula. Ma'am, I put the formula in for you. Why do you keep changing it? You keep changing it. I keep putting this like the fourth time I do it. No, this, look. Your total equity investment is your purchase price less your debt. Voila! Okay, I mean, okay, hold on. Hold on, what am I trying to do? Andrew, I gotta save Andrew, hold on. Okay, so let's go to the, you don't have a mouse, and this is a Mac. I mean, you're really like,
By inflation. Is that what you did? Yeah.
close enough. Let's go to operating, let's go to NOI, let's jump all the way to NOI. No, we got a problem. Oh, okay, hold on. Looking at you wrong. Yeah. Don't do that. Okay. Okay, that looks good. And that is close enough, yeah. No, it's pretty close. Okay, so let's see what else we may have. That's it. Okay. Let me see if this changes what I just did change anything here. Is that the right number?
Question.
Let's take a look at more data tables. Okay, so you're gonna redo them, okay. Okay, no. It's very close, I'm just trying to see why I can't get you a little bit closer, okay? We're doing different sensitivities here, okay? We're doing occupancy, okay, is this saved right now? Save it before we, can we do over a second again? This is over again. Is it 125, which is solved? We're like $500,000 off. I'm trying to see why. We're gonna put an underscore here, okay? A line. Just, okay, I'm not gonna do it now, just, you know, like, just like that, like the same kind of line, okay?
250 basis points above the going.
Judson, what do you need, so that you can keep working, because she's closer to the end?
Would this be 2.5%?
Yes. run with it. I don't know why we're off as much as we are on the purchase price, but it seems to be flowing fine, so it's not that much. I just think we should be a lot closer, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're almost in the exact number, so I don't know why Solver is off that much, because even our debt number just here, keep going, keep working with it, okay? You're on the right path, okay? That seems right. Debt coverage seems low. Hold on. No, but that coverage is low at the beginning. Remember we had, yeah. That seems right. That seems right. Leverage return on investment. Did you figure out that you remember you had the wrong form? Well, you've got that number now, right? You could just go, you can go to that divided by that before. Whatever you can figure it out. Why am I getting why? Oh. Let's do what you just did. Yeah, D41.
Just freezing up.
You're right. It's a minus number. We got minus, we got a different number, we got debt service, but that's. Growth in NOI, are you below, it's fine. Growth in free cash flow, it's negative, and then it starts getting, and then it starts. Yeah, it's way off, and then it starts getting 19, 17, and it comes up, right, yep. Levered cash on cash. Yep, that looks right, and minus it, yep, so it looks right, yep, so you just got, to the data pages, and I think you're good, okay? Andrew, you got it.
Yeah, I got it. Did you get my email?
Yeah, did you get mine?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Brian. Okay. No, but I think. first year, yeah, we're good, 1.4. Yeah, I mean, we're close enough up to NOI. Okay, you got pennies there, which you gotta get rid of. Your debt service looks way high, so I don't know if you've done, have you done, your purchase price and all that?
Yeah.
This is sort of like that.
Yeah, the year from top.
The purchase price looks really low, so let's kind of figure out. So on an unlevered basis, you don't have any loan, right? It's unlevered, so you should just get rid of that there, okay?
Yeah, did the NOI divided by the cap?
So the subsequent year's NOI. So it would be year 2 NOI. 1407. That looks right. Get rid of all the pennies and all that shit, and all the extra dollar signs, and then put underscores and all that, okay? Something doesn't look right in these formulas, okay? Yeah. How many periods do we have?
10 years.
No, that's when the loan matures, but what are you amortizing over? You're amortizing over 25 years. Okay, so this cell needs to end up to here. For here, and for principal also. Fix that and keep working, okay? Okay, we got about an hour.
I'll take the loss.
You'll take a loss. To be in at 4:30.
Are you doing good?
You don't want to take that kind of loss.
Sorry, but this is a loss.
Of course you get this done. I did this in like 90 minutes. You guys got 3 hours. Plus you should have done this already. Video said it. I got people who turned it in already. Yes, sir.
Pablo would have shared it with everybody.
You're trying to do this
Oh,
thing here?
but we got some selfish folks.
Right, so, but come in there.
From a principal standpoint, this bullshit.
Okay, but go there, go there. Okay, open up the formula. Okay, so then you're gonna have to point to where rate is and divide it by 12 because it's monthly, right?
Well, you have to be patient.
Okay, so what is the rate? So what do you say the rate?
It's times, you gotta wait for the last version
So
of
the
it.
rate was 10 years plus 2.5%. So the 10 year was 185. It's 185 plus 2.5%. Okay? Okay, and the amortization says 25 years monthly, not 30, so it's not 360, 25 times 12. Okay? 25 times 12. Does that help you, that you can get working on that, right?
I forgot you could fast forward times 1 point.
Right, let's leave it on times 2.
How do you like this?
I'm just trying to, I stopped it.
Oh, because you're still on the assumption, you're still on the,
Yeah, we stopped to get dollars in there.
okay.
I'm stuck, I have to go back and look at it, because I just feel like I couldn't get these, like, I feel like there was something wrong with my financial assumptions.
But let me,
Yeah,
you had this built last week.
I know.
So why didn't you just copy it, paste, and work from that, instead of building it from scratch?
That's a good idea.
I don't know, it's easier for me to, I know.
you know. If you know, then
I should do it.
then you should do it. In fact, if you would have seen me in the video, I took the multifamily one,
And just expanded on it.
yeah, and then I didn't have to do all this stuff from scratch. Yes, Isabel. Isabel. Miss Charles. Okay, so don't worry about those. You don't need that right there. You don't.
Does it
I mean,
have that?
you could have it, but you don't need it, because we don't use that anymore. We got a resale schedule. We have a resale schedule. You could just delete this thing that says sales, you could delete that. Okay? You don't need to do that. Yeah, of course you have to do that, because then that's how you're gonna be able to amortize the loan. Don't leave credit cards just floating around like that. You watching the video? You're gonna start. Oh, you're pairing. Your spreadsheet disappeared? That's a problem, Juliana. Save frequently, folks. Save frequently. What happened? What happened? Solver disappeared? No. Go to Davos. Okay, and go to. Oh, okay, go
what's
to.
about those?
Okay, go to página inicial. Yeah. No, go to the other one, the one that's like, you know which one I'm talking about? There, home. And go to abrir. No, not abrir. I'm trying to figure this out. This is totally different than, no. Okay, go back. Go to Davos again. Okay, and go to Avon. No, that's not it. No, I don't think it's there. Go to XCBA. What's it? XCBA? No, that's just, and go to formulas and see if it's there for some reason. No, it's not there. Go to Dados again. Okay, well you can use Goal Seek. I don't see Goal Seek here either though.
Yeah.
Where is it?
I have no idea.
Okay, do you know how to open up the ribbons? Tabla de dados. Okay, so no, that's that, okay, no, go to the one above it. Go to the one above it. Atingir metas, that one's it. So use Goal Seek for, so like, use that, make that one, 0.15. No, the one below it.
From the original.
Yeah, but you gotta change that. That one, is that right, 201? Yeah, okay, no, that's fine. Okay, then go 0.15. And then go to, you have to go, no, you have to go up the other way. The purchase price, yeah, that one. Yep, and see what happens.
No, it can be purchased in.
Oh, because you got it in Portuguese.
Yeah.
Imagine, okay.
Okay.
Oh, how come your number comes out exactly like your neighbor?
Yeah, because we are.
Because you guys are synced together?
Yes.
Okay, that seems like it's about close enough. I couldn't fix hers anymore. But that's wrong there. That's wrong.
Yeah, no, I have to change.
Yes, that's wrong. Because it's not a multiplication.
Yeah. Divide. Divided by 4, right? It is.
schedule my debt service after that.
Yeah, and then the purchase price.
It's like so many things.
Divided, or
And I
did
watched
you
this, you know, I watched.
Oh, yeah. That's
Go ahead.
definitely drops apart. I fast forward.
Just cry in the bathroom.
Where are you at?
Fucking reflecting on my life choices. Like.
Where are you at with this?
I'm doing like the equity debt calculations right now, which is disgusting and stupid. I basically just built out a cash flow and just like work backwards and put the rooms all in. But like,
Yeah, he said that.
like this is where I basically supposed to spend the bulk of my time.
Okay, that's not bad. I think a lot of us are stuck there. So,
Where are you stuck on? I thought you built it.
I did.
Okay.
where are you
The
at
little
with this?
boxes, the IRR stuff I did.
Did she just get up in bed? She just had enough. What did you start? What did you
I love
You were just saying. About you?
Yeah.
Sorry?
No, but I guess you had to get it out there or something.
What's the next step? Okay, now, it's not why is that not okay? I just, I don't know what kind of, I don't know what kind of small. So give me, it'll be my first party community that we built, so.
Mainly just this deck.
And then that's another project, not really design related. From the umbrella, sure. Like documentation. And stuff like that.
Yes, sir. I seem to struggle with getting this closing cost value you have on your video, no matter how hard I try. Hold on a second.
What is the problem?
I seem to struggle getting this value, the closing cost on the video, when I try to do it on here. This one here. This one.
Just to save time, we have a resale schedule, so you don't have to worry about that right now.
Okay, that's fine.
You have a resale schedule, right?
Yeah.
That's the one that matters to me.
Okay.
Okay, so if you get that right, that's what flows down into the formulas, okay, so. We left that there, we used to use that in the sort of early ones that we built, but as we got more sophisticated, we stopped using that. So you really only have to solve for the first two, but remember, so it's the rate divided by 12. And the number of periods, 25, and multiplied by 12. Okay? So it should be 25 by 12, should give you whatever, instead of 360, whatever, you know, that number is, 250 or. Yes, sir. Oh. Yeah, that's right, then that's the right number. Present value, you should point to whatever, you're gonna have to solve for a purchase price. And then multiply that by the 65%. And you're gonna say, how do I solve for a purchase price? Well, you can put whatever number, it can be whatever number, as long as later on, you adjust that. But I still don't understand why you didn't start from what you had already done.
Like the multi-family model from when you did the first video, like on Monday and Tuesday. I mean, I just, because the way my brain organized it, for some odd reason, I decided to build it all out from scratch. I know, it made my life really difficult.
Ron, you're doing?
Yeah, I think that's a really better.
Let me see, what's the number? The debt service number. 1,000,009. Yeah, from recollection, it looks a little high, but I don't know if you've solved for purchase price yet, have you?
Yeah.
Will you solve for that at the IRR that this thing required? You haven't gotten that far yet. Okay, keep working. I'm coming. Are you done? You should be done. You like working stuff to death, I think. Yes, it is. It is. I have a slightly different number, but it's close enough to that. Yes. No, it looks a little low. It looks a little low. It looks a little low. I don't know. I mean, I can't look at the whole sheet. If you show me the whole sheet, maybe I can help. Yellow, for instance, there. Work your way down. Work your way down to NOI. Well, doesn't sound okay. Coming down. You don't have that service yet. So, like if you